Okay, why don't we just call the meeting to order, which I'm doing. We'll take roll call and we'll start with Kim.
Kimberly Watts.
Aaron Sullivan.
David Schwartz.
Martha Schroed.
Jill Plamper.
Mike Wright.
Sheldon Coe.
Allison Iverson.
And Andy Doctoroff. And the first item is the approval of the agenda. Hank?
Mr. Chairman, at this point in time, we would like to amend the agenda to include asking you to set a public hearing for wireless ordinance. And these changes come to us through the city attorney, Carol Rosati, and these are changes that are required.
So do you want that in new item number 7?
Yeah, I would like that so that you could put, so that we could have the public hearing. At that point in time, we'll be able to make our legal notice for the next meeting and have it, but we'll have it scheduled so that we can implement it.
Okay, so we'll just refer to that as cell tower issue? Is it, or how would you like it referred?
Wireless,
Wireless.
yes, thank you.
Okay, so would anyone like to make a motion to approve the agenda? It's not the one that was delivered to us to our homes. It was the one that emailed today, which frankly I don't have a copy of because I couldn't open it.
I couldn't open it either.
So
I did some gymnastics and finally got it open.
Word perfect.
It won't open
Yeah,
on
this word
phone.
perfect
Yes, Word should be able to convert it.
right.
You may have to download a converter, but there is.
I was trying to
I
open it on my
opened
phone,
it
so.
from Word.
You
Can you do it on my regular
Yeah.
computer?
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks, Hank. Didn't know that there was an email.
And Hank,
I
the
didn't know there had been an
clarification,
email.
just so the record's clear,
Yeah.
is to change number 6, just to make it obvious that we're talking about the zoo issues, right?
Yeah, I mean, it was actually the same thing, but we just wanted to be clear about what it
Yeah,
was that we're
okay.
doing, so.
So this is the one we're
And
approving.
that is the one that's also on the website.
Okay.
This is,
Does anyone want to make a motion to approve the agenda as again amended with the new number 7 being wireless issue and number 8 being public participation?
Motion to approve as amended.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? The agenda as amended is approved. The next item is the approval of minutes from the 19th and the 26th of March. Any comments as to first the one from March 19th?
Mr. Chairman, if I could just point one thing out too, is that my minute taker's not here tonight, so it might have to be a little bit slow for me to write it down if there are any changes or
Sorry.
alterations.
Yeah.
Okay.
Comment. The last page of that set of minutes has approval of a motion that isn't set out. Actually, I'm missing page 6.
Oops. That is correct. We're missing page 6.
Okay, you got 5, and then I go to
7.
7.
I have 6. I'm special.
Can you read it to us?
From the first one?
Oh,
There are 2 sets.
this is, I have 6 from March 26th.
No, March 19th.
All right, well, let
Okay,
me
Mr.
listen.
Chairman, if I could ask that you would go ahead and approve the minutes for March 26th, and I'll find out what the 19th, and I'll just
Okay.
include those on.
So we'll move to the 26th. Any comments, questions, concerns about March 26th
Yeah,
set?
yeah, page 6.
Thank you.
The matter of the zoning board approval of appeals liaison,
Yeah.
that second sentence ends up with a Board of Appeals lesion.
Liaison. Okay,
That's me.
It's you.
I'll
Okay.
take care of that, thank you.
You're the legion.
When I applied for the Los Angeles Times reporting job, they gave me a spelling test, and liaison, I failed. I did not know how to
You know,
spell it
it's
then, and I
funny.
still don't know how to
It
spell
comes up, it passes through spell check, because it's a
Lesion
word.
is a word.
Right.
it. Yeah, so I just remember liaison is what almost prevented
All right.
from getting a job.
Well, I'll get that changed. You won't
Okay,
get
so we'll
any more-
make that change. Anything else? To this set? Okay, all those in favor of approving the minutes for March 26th, say aye, or no, we need a motion.
I move to approve the minutes for March 26th.
As amended.
As
Is it
amended.
Second?
All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
And I'll just abstain from that, Andy, since I wasn't here.
Okay, so it's unanimous, that one abstention. And Hank, how would you suggest we handle the 19th? Wanna just,
Mr. Chairman, what I'd suggest you do is defer adoption of those minutes till the next regular meeting.
everyone okay with that, guys? Okay.
So if that's acceptable to you,
Yeah.
then you would need a motion to defer, and then I would just,
Anyone wanna make a motion?
Motion to defer the meeting minutes from March 19th to the next
Second.
meeting.
All those in favor?
Aye.
thank you.
Okay, we're deferred. The next item on the agenda is number 5, the matter of discussion and setting a public hearing date for revisions to prohibited uses under home occupation.
Mr. Chairman, this is really kind of a simple matter. Basically, what it was is that we were supposed to have a public hearing at the last meeting, which was canceled because it was the only thing that we had. So in order to be transparent and make sure that the public has adequate notice for it, well, because there was some interest in it, we would like to reset the public hearing for the next regular planning commission meeting. If that's the pleasure of the commission.
Anyone wanna make that motion?
Again, I guess that I would have a question
Okay.
of, we haven't had any site plan review for a couple of months, so.
But
is
that's
it-
not,
is-
can we,
Right, I just don't want that
we're gonna
to
have
be
that.
so heavy of a meeting
No,
with
it's not
public
gonna be,
participation
yeah.
that it's overwhelming.
No, I don't
That would
anticipate
be my
that.
only question.
I anticipate a really big house, but I don't anticipate
A
anything.
lot
you
of little ones,
anticipate big
okay.
Pardon me?
You do anticipate a big
Yeah,
house?
really big house.
Interesting, we'll
Okay.
talk about that in a second, maybe.
Okay.
But anyone wanna make the motion
Fine.
in light of that?
Motion to have public hearing for the prohibited uses or under home occupations on the next scheduled meeting.
Thank you.
Second?
Second?
Any discussion? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay. The next item is number 6, the matter of update on residents' concerns regarding the Detroit Zoo. Obviously, we were all here the last time. Amy, why don't you give us an update as to what has been done regarding the items that were specifically enumerated and mentioned in these minutes, by the way, and how things are going otherwise.
They are progressing
Mhm.
slowly. We want to make sure that we're doing this thoughtfully. So as of now, Hank and myself and Ben, the planner, and Carol Rosati, the city attorney, have talked about, I think there were 9 issues that the residents had concerns with, about things that we might be able to tweak, some things that we can't tweak. What we are focusing on right now are, one of the things that we'd like to propose that is new is adding architectural features to habitats or walls for building habitats or any kind of building, and incorporate that into the ordinance. So we are trying to finesse that language, because adding that kind of articulation to, tiger habitats is not quite as easy as saying, you need to have windows placed here and, the things that you normally do. So we're trying to come up with appropriate language that puts the zoo on notice that we expect to have some articulation, but without tying their hands to the point where we're saying you have to put in windows into a tiger habitat.
I don't want fenestration in the tiger cage.
Yeah. So that's where we are right now. That's the last spot that we need to work out, and once we have that worked out, then the mayor and I will sit down with the zoo and go over the items that we have come up with, get the feedback from the zoo, and then Bob will convene a meeting with the residents, as he's done in the past, where he hand delivers the letters to everybody along Huntington Road, and we'll get feedback
Now,
from the residents.
at the last meeting, what I suggested, and this made its way into the minutes, is I suggested that 2 members of the community address with Amy and 2 members of the planning commission, and then get with Amy and discuss what was mentioned. There are actually typos here, using that feedback as a basis for revision. But the idea was that we, before this is a baked pie, we integrate the 2 members of the community and the planning commission to make sure that things are going well. Do you remember that discussion?
I do. I think what we were gonna do was get the resident input once we had talked to the.
Right, I'm not saying we have to do it right now.
Okay.
I'm simply saying that, intermediary step, I think, would be helpful to make sure that before we go to folks with a fait accompli, there was that opportunity for input by members of the planning commission and the community.
Are you suggesting that before the zoo meeting that take place, or after we get feedback from the zoo?
I would say after you get feedback from the zoo, so it's more comprehensive, but before things have been finalized.
Okay.
I mean, and you might want to take a look at these minutes because there are typos in that section, so just before we approve it next time. But am I okay, guys, with that recommendation? Because I remember we talked about that. So that
I don't remember, did you appoint 2 members of the planning commission?
I don't
to
think
that?
we did. I think it was a suggestion. I thought you, and it says here you agreed. So I think.
And how do we appoint?
Well, you'd actually have to appoint somebody. It would be no different a process than it would be for you to be appointed to the zoning board of appeals. There would need to be.
What about the public, though?
Well, that was, I think, why we were leaning toward talking to everybody rather than focusing on 1 or 2 individuals.
Well, let me ask you this. When you say there has to be an appointment, would it have to be an elected appointment, or could I do it in my discretion and chair, authority as a chair?
I think if you're gonna appoint somebody to a committee, I think that if you're appointing a representative from the planning commission to be part of another body.
More, I was thinking of it as informal, just to kick the tires before this thing, hits the road,
Well, I think you'd get, for my 2 cents, I think you'd probably need a motion passed enabling you to do that. At number 1, and number 2, I think we'd have to get by open meeting issues.
I don't want to create complications, so.
I would suggest that you actually, when it comes time to that, and after the city manager has had an opportunity to speak with the mayor, that procedure would indicate that you would actually make an appointment, you would nominate somebody, and it would go through here.
I think you can just do it now, because this is an appointment of the planning commission. You can just
But we were also talking about.
make an appointment with the support of the rest of the planning commission.
You would have a consensus vote.
Right.
I mean, I wanted to be on it just to make sure that I'm honoring the kind of things that we talked about with the community, because we made some specific we made some very specific commitments I want to make sure we honor.
Okay.
In terms of community input and following through, so I want to be present, if that's okay with folks. Would anyone else like to participate on this?
I can. I don't know if I can with being a commission,
You may ultimately
be voting.
be asked
Yeah, I'm
to
not
move on
sure
to
that that's-
another level, so I don't know that would
Okay.
be a.
I'll do it.
Okay, so is that cool with everyone? Just the 2 of us? Okay, so a consensus, informal consensus. And then the thing says in here, and I don't know that we do this now, that we would talk about having 2 members of the community being part of the consultative process. That's the right word.
2 members of the
Community.
2 residents?
Yeah, it says,
That was my question. How do we pick those 2 residents?
I don't know.
Right, that's a.
That's why.
Touchy subject.
Okay, so why don't we, is there a good, so we're comfortable that we'll stay involved in the process, and then we can take it to the community before it's been finalized for their
Yes,
input?
oh, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, as
Everyone comfortable with that?
residents as a whole,
Yeah.
so everybody has equal opportunity
Okay,
to.
yeah, no, there's a, okay, because I just think this planning commission should stay involved to an appropriate extent to make sure that, again, we're honoring commitments that were clearly made about our involvement at the last meeting.
All right, not a problem.
And I think we should also make note of the fact that the only people we ever hear from are the ones that are unhappy, but there are more than they living on Huntington. So we have to be objective about how we proceed.
Absolutely,
So-
absolutely. I will also say, however, that with my 173,000 steps, I walk by the zoo a lot this and I saw things, and I had questions, so, again and again and again.
Did you get that in the minutes? Hank?
Yeah. Okay, so I think we can move on to the next item. Thank you for that update, Amy. The next item is the wireless.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, again, thank you for allowing this to be amended to be added to the agenda. This is simply, it's an administrative change that's required. The city attorney, go ahead.
There's a new bill working its way very quickly through the legislature called the Small Cell Wireless Communication Facilities Deployment Act, and one of the articles say that cell operators would be allowed to increase the height of utility poles over 40 feet unless the limit is entered into the zoning ordinance, and then they have to comply with the zoning ordinance. So the amendment would be to limit the height of utility poles to 40 feet so that cell service providers would have to comply with that. So it's an amendment to the, and also it will require that certain equipment be considered stealth equipment. I don't know if you're familiar with that. That is the process to try to hide cellular equipment at the top of poles. You might notice that, I think it's at Manresa, there's this gigantic, or even at 14 Mile and Orchard Lake, there's a gigantic pine tree, gigantic. Okay, maybe that's the one I'm thinking of. So that would be considered stealth equipment. So that would be amending our ordinance to require stealth equipment and then limiting the height of utility poles.
So we're not taking a vote on this today? This
No.
is-
No, you're setting it for public hearing, and then you'll get all the information.
What's the height now?
40 feet.
40 feet.
So this is basically, if I'm hearing you, we're taking back the discretionary authority that we would otherwise lose
That's correct.
if we were not to do this.
Yeah.
And the default of the legislation is to, prevent the communities from having any say in this matter,
Yeah.
unless we put it in our ordinances.
Andy, but this isn't law yet.
No, it's
from what I
not, but
understand.
we're,
Preemptive.
yeah, trying to get it.
I mean, what's the current limit? Is there a current limit? Either in our ordinance,
It is 40 feet.
and is that permitted under current statute? That limitation?
Yeah, that's what we have.
So,
Are you talking about
I
the
know
state
that's what you
statute?
have,
Right.
but you're a scofflaw all the time.
Are you talking about the state statute?
We've got, according to Hake, we've got a 40-foot limit now in our ordinance.
So what
I assume that complies with the current state of statute. Yes, no?
I don't know with the state statute.
Okay.
I don't know if there is a regulation at the state level.
So if we have,
You want to
And-
codify it into your zoning ordinance is what you want
but
to
you're
do.
telling me we have it codified in the ordinance already?
I don't, it's not in the
No,
zoning ordinance.
not like that.
Yeah.
the bottom line is this is a prophylactic measure in the event that this legislation is passed, correct? Okay. Anyone got any further questions?
You've got the red line copy of the ordinance there?
Okay.
Yeah, and you'll have time, and then we'll also have comments. You'll be getting a lot of information in your packet
Okay.
for
So-
next time.
So it would be a similar motion to the one that Kim made, but do we have enough time for the,
Yeah, absolutely.
okay,
That's why we wanted to do it this time, so we can get it in and get it done.
okay. Anyone want to make a motion?
Yes, what is it? Motion to,
Set a public hearing.
Yeah, you'd be setting a public hearing for the changes to the wireless ordinance.
motion to set a public hearing for next commission meeting, would it be?
That would be correct.
Next commission meeting for review of the wireless ordinance.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed? Okay, unanimous. Final item on the agenda is public participation. There's no one here, so that's open and shut. But before we adjourn, can we ask, or can I ask, why haven't we had any site plans in the last 2 months? I don't recall a quote-unquote drought like this since I joined.
Well, I don't know that I would call it a drought. It's interesting that the projects that we are getting, the projects that we are working on are substantially larger in nature than they ever have been. But a lot of the, what we might term smaller or regular additions have slowed down.
Why would that be, do you think?
It's really hard to tell because we're doing a substantial amount of electrical, smaller building permits, things that don't have to come before the planning commission. That number really hasn't changed. It's just the bigger projects that you would normally see on a regular basis, the first quarter of the year have slowed down, and there's really no reason for it. I'm still talking to plenty of contractors. Everybody's just busy. They're not getting their plans in like they used to. They're not getting, everybody's just busy, so we're just not getting the applications. However, the phone has not stopped ringing. So I don't know whether that indicates that our next section will be,
Does this have anything to do with the new level of rigor, if you want to call it, under the ordinance?
none whatsoever.
No?
All the contractors and designers that I talked to get it. They haven't had any problems with it. It wouldn't be a deterrent because if somebody wants to add to their house here, they would have the same meetings, they would have the same conversations that we would have, only we would be enlightening people as to the changes in the new zoning ordinance. But I haven't had anybody say they're not doing it because of that at all. So that would have nothing that I could tangibly put my hand on for that.
Anyone else got questions about our drought?
What can you
My
tell us
word.
about this new house?
Yeah,
Nothing right now until I actually have the signed application.
okay, fair enough. Any other comments, questions, concerns before I entertain a motion to adjourn? Okay, short record meeting in terms of brevity. Anyone make a motion to adjourn?
Move to adjourn.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for this very quick meeting.